Are you excited to watch a movie in Fortnite?
Fortnite is the current generation third space. The spaces where people just hang out don't really exist anymore and are now like digital spaces. It's a smart move to look at those people and find a way to get them into cinema.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Breakroom. Incoming Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro revealed earlier this week that he has big plans for Fortnite. So today we're going to look at what those plans are, what it means for Disney, what it means for Fortnite, and whether or not this is a watershed moment for entertainment or a tempest in a teapot. I'm Alex Berg. With me today is the one, the only. When he's here, I'm never lonely. It's Brian Kim.
That's right. Every day I follow him after work.
It's terrifying.
I make sure he's not alone.
I can't get him to stop. I hate it. It creeps me out. Okay, let's dive right in. I want to start with the key quote from Josh D'Amaro, and then we can back up and add in some context and thoughts and all that. But here's the quote from Josh D'Amaro that's got the internet all abuzz at the moment. Regarding Disney and Fortnite's future collaborations, he says, quote, "It's not just going to be one character. It could be a new film premiering there. It could be the place that you decide to book your next cruise vacation. You could participate in the Super Bowl in some way there." End quote. So let's break down that quote. The first part is a new film premiering there in Fortnite. There is some historical precedent for this. Obviously, when people say somehow Palpatine returned, they mean in Fortnite. The Tenet trailer first premiered in Fortnite. We recently had the Kill Bill: The Lost Chapter come out in Fortnite, animated in Unreal Engine, but still. We've had many at this point musical acts there, from Travis Scott to Ariana Grande. I think Chappell Roan might be happening now or very soon as of this taping. And let's also not forget the insane footprint of Fortnite. And we'll use the video game industry as a proxy here, but you know, the film industry in 2022, I pulled these numbers from Forbes. The film industry in 2022 hit $26 billion worldwide, while the game industry in 2022 was $184.4 billion worldwide. So it's, it could be the case that Disney is looking at this as a way to expand its footprint, which on the face of it seems crazy that Disney needs a bigger footprint of all people.
Yeah.
But when you hear Josh D'Amaro say that could be a place where you see a movie, what do you, Brian, think? Are you excited to watch a movie in Fortnite?
Yeah, I'm personally not excited about this prospect. I think it's like a little bit of, more nails in the coffin that is the cinema industry or the theater industry specifically.
Yeah.
Because if movies start to premiere or like the primary place to watch it is via a video game like Fortnite, combined with streaming, there really is not going to be a place for like theater cinema. But like I understand why Disney is looking there for like growth, because if you look at everything, the theater industry is dying. It's a dying industry where there hasn't we all love the theaters and we love going, but like the reality is there hasn't been enough, probably innovation to convince people to go. And I don't know if Disney thinks like they can do that by themselves, but instead they're going to go to a place where people are already at, which is going to be video games like Fortnite.
Right. They're trying to meet the audience where they are.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. I mean, I'm of two minds about it. On the one hand, I've played quite a bit of Fortnite. It's not the place I want to go to watch a movie. That's not what I go there for. Even if there is a big audience there, that doesn't necessarily mean that audience is there ready to watch a movie. They're there, ready to, I don't know. My go-to emote after I kill somebody is a saxophone dance because I think it's humiliating. But that's what people go to Fortnite for. Even when Fortnite itself rolls out new experiences, things like Fortnite Festival or when they absorbed, I'm blanking on the name of the car game that they absorbed, that Epic absorbed.
Oh,
Rocket League.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Lego stuff. Those things are it's not that nobody plays them, but they pale in comparison to the Battle Royale mode. That's Fortnite's killer app. So, for me, on the face of it, I'm like, yeah, I guess you could air a movie in Fortnite. And maybe there is something to be said if I'm being as like open-minded about it as I can. Maybe there's something to be said where, moments like Chicken Jockey from the Minecraft movie where people were going to the theaters to like go nuts over Chicken Jockey, or even going back further than that when people would do like midnight screenings of Rocky Horror and everyone would have their, their newspapers and the squirt guns and all that sort of stuff. Maybe there is something to be said for the fundamental interactivity of Fortnite as a metaverse, having some utility to augment, I hesitate to say enhance, but to at least augment or make unique the experience of watching a movie.
Yeah.
That doesn't appeal to me, but I can see the logic behind that at least.
100%. And I think there's like I think the part that Disney's really latching onto is like, what do they want out of a theater experience?
Yeah.
And it's like the movie experience, and I think most entertainment experiences are like, there's two prongs to it, where there's like the art side and the like entertainment side.
Yeah.
Where like, these platforms can be used to make and produce like real good art. The art of cinema, even video games. There's like games that are like very purposefully for art.
Oh, don't get me started. I mean, I agree with you fundamentally. I think there's a lot of games that aren't art can be used pretentiously. I don't think that's how you're using it. I'm not trying to. I would never think of you pretentious.
I'm a pretentious guy, so I get it.
You're like a scummy scuzz bucket kind of jerk. Everyone around the office is like, Brian, he's kind of a dick, but he's not pretentious.
That's the worst of both worlds, I think.
That's how people talk about you.
I gotta change
all
it up.
the time.
I gotta change it
all
up.
the people say it. You leave the room, people are like, oh, fucking God. But yeah, I mean, I think like there are, certainly you can point to any of Genova Chen's games, things like Journey, Abzu, Flower, as being very artistic. I think you could also point to something like the Last of Us games as being very artistic. And I think you could point to something like the Uncharted games, which are also Naughty Dog, but being no more or less artistic than like a Indiana Jones movie. Maybe a little bit less steeped in cinema, but certainly, or cinematic history, but certainly same like kind of adventure thrill. And I do think using Uncharted as a jumping off point, I do think there is a certain kind of thrill in, if you play Uncharted 4, there's that great sequence in Madagascar where like you're in this like crowded market and then you go down and solve this puzzle, like the base of this like weird little tower thing. And then you come out and there's a gunfight and you're like being dragged alongside a car and then you're on a motorcycle. And it's great. It's like being on a roller coaster ride. It's great. That's something Disney does really well. But that feels different from, hey, we're going to take a movie that was just meant to be watched and make you watch it in an interactive space.
Right.
And so I think for me, I'm not dying to do that latter thing. If Disney's going to get more serious about being a games company, which I would love to see them do, and they're using Fortnite as a way to get to that, that's great. But I think it's a pretty stretched read of what DeMauro says to get to there. From what he was saying on that quote.
When you say stretched read, you mean like?
I don't think he's saying we're going to make sick video games. I think he's saying we're going to premiere movies in Fortnite.
Yeah. The way, this is maybe a cynical take, but I think it's like a more realistic one. Disney views their movies as a marketing tool for
their parks experience.
Yeah, their parks experience, their merch, like all of that. Like it's strictly a marketing tool, which is like, say what you will, but I personally think the storytelling of Disney movies from the past, decade or so has been a lot worse than like in the beginning. Like when they used to be primarily a media company,
right.
Like they had to create good media in order to get people connected to their stories in order to sell their stuff. But now that they're primarily an entertainment experience, what is it? Parks, like
poo-poo.
Yeah, they're primarily a poo-poo company.
Poo-poo, pee-pee, caca,
they're primarily a company that like you go for parks and experiences. Because of that, like everything is trying to funnel people into that. And so they're definitely looking at like, how do you capture a new like it used to be that you watch movies, you watch Disney Channel originals, and like that's how you get indoctrinated into the Disney like world. Like I grew up on Disney Channel, and all that stuff is like why I still like Disney, even though like whatever, like all the Disney shows, like Gravity Falls, a great show. That was a Disney show.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that stuff creates this like image in me for Disney, and it's a reason why I still like to like experience their things. Now they're trying to tackle a completely new area, and I think the way they're trying to get to them through Fortnite, like in a business sense, makes sense because it's like all about entertainment. Like, we talked about the Kill Bill.
The
short.
Yuki's Revenge.
Yeah. But like when you watch the actual thing, it's like it's weird because they use
it's all Fortnite models.
It's all Fortnite models, and they put like Fortnite jokes into it.
Yeah,
like the Fortnite characters are in there. They're making cameos.
Yeah, I think like Peely shows up in the background.
Like all of them show up. Like the Yuki buys a car from the fish guy. And so it's like a weird thing where it becomes like it's just pure entertainment and funny and fun. And sometimes that is what gets people to buy things.
Well, so here's when I'm looking at this as optimistically as possible, and I'm trying to take that stance because I have to think they have a better idea than just putting a movie screen in Fortnite and then you go sit and watch it with your character and you dance the parts you like or something. When I'm looking at it through my most optimistic lens, I think of things like the Ariana Grande concert in summer of 2021, which I went to with my daughter and genuinely ruled. I don't like Ariana Grande's music. I have no affinity for her as a pop star. It was purely, hey man, it was pandemic. We can go to this thing and it'll be entertaining. But it was very genuinely really well done. It was awesome. And it was awesome in a very distinct and more interactive way than music videos are awesome. There was this like very cool sort of like big monster thing. You're flying around in a little biplane with your squad, like shooting at stuff, that was really great. And I think, but again, this goes back to what I was saying a few minutes ago of like, that doesn't seem like what Josh D'Amaro is saying. He is fundamentally a parks guy. He's the one who's been helming their parks and experiential department for the past few years. And I have to believe that there is something fundamentally novel that could be done experientially with storytelling in that medium. I think that although it was a failure, Galaxy's Edge or whatever the Galactic Star Cruiser, it didn't work. But man, what a wild and cool swing, to be like, hey, you're going to go LARP as a Star Wars character for a weekend and everyone in that building is going to be LARPing. You can talk to them. That's as interactive as it gets. Stuff like that makes me optimistic about it. Stuff like Palpatine somehow returning and then that being a plot point in the next Star Wars movie makes me less enthusiastic about it. So I guess I'm just not sure. It's too early to say where it falls. I want to be excited about it, but I am hesitant.
Yeah.
Today's episode of The Breakroom is sponsored by Factor. If you're staring at a fridge full of Super Bowl leftovers and wondering if maybe there's something better to eat than cold wings, Factor has you covered. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. Their chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are perfect if you're trying to start the new year off healthy, and you can literally go from opening the box to eating in 2 minutes. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. A couple days ago, I had a cheddar and poblano shredded beef bowl, and it was very good. I like poblanos because you get a little bit of that heat, it doesn't melt your face off, and like, when has anybody ever been steered wrong with beef and cheddar? That's just kind of half of what I order whenever I go out to eat, and now I can have it at home. Head to factormeals.com/breakroom50 off and use code breakroom50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year while your subscription is active.
To your point, I think if they are just literally premiering a movie in Fortnite, like you just watch it and like it's literally in a screen, there's a screen, or even if it like takes up the whole screen, that's probably not going to be a very good experience. But if they decide to go the more interactive route, like the concerts that Fortnite has held. I think that could be a really interesting, novel way to experience new stories. I remember when like VR was first starting to like really take off.
When do you think that was? Because I'm older than you, and I may have a different
I don't-
start date for this. Give me a day, a time down to the minute.
I just remember when forget takeoff, when it was first introduced to the public zeitgeist. I don't think it ever really took off.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
The date is still like 5-10 years in the future.
But when it's was being introduced, one of the things I remember people saying that it could be interesting is like first person storytelling, like movies that are like taking place like you're in the environment.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem with that is that like you can't really control what the person is going to focus on. Like if the story is taking place here, but there's an entire environment, they can just ignore it and look somewhere else.
You lose the ability as a director to
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think interestingly, a game lets you kind of do both. Because I was, I didn't experience the Ariana Grande.
It was so good.
I wish I did.
Honestly,
I just don't play.
Honestly, it was great. Yeah, I wish I had done the Travis Scott one, but I was like traveling that weekend. But like, yeah, I mean, it was legitimately great. Like, I wish I could be a cynical guy who's like, my daughter's music is trash, and I'm like, it was fun though. You know?
And in that, I was watching some YouTube videos on it, and like in that experience, even though you can walk around and interact, they can still like move the camera to force you to focus on something. Yeah. It still has a focal point, and I think there could be a way to use that interestingly to create cool stories.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think back to, even outside of Fortnite, can you imagine there's a game other than Fortnite? Even outside of it, there's all these other video games. There's Qbert. Qbert fucking rips. It's so good. Qbert is so good.
You mean the guy from Wreck-It Ralph?
Yeah, the guy from, him.
Okay.
Oh, but there was I want to say it was PlayStation 2. It might have been an early PS3 game. There was a Lord of the Rings RPG. I think it was called The Third Age. And very early on in the game, you get to play Gandalf fighting the Balrog. And it's incredible. I'm sure if I went back and watched a video of it now, it would be like, very like polygonal, like, PS3 graphics or whatever. But it was great, and I think also back to, again, just sticking with Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers game that came out on PS2, which from EA, and kind of the idea behind that game was you get to play the movie, really handled a lot of the very cinematic parts of the movie in a way that was, again, different from watching Peter Jackson's movie, but still like felt like you were really there, and I really want to be optimistic that Disney is going to try to find some novel way of making it the case that using Fortnite, they're able to either expand the reach of their movies to people who wouldn't get to have access to them otherwise, or do something interesting with the interactivity beyond just like you're saying, screen in a screen. Because if the Fortnite Island is just a menu instead of a Netflix or Disney Plus like menu, that ain't doing it for me.
Not for sure. And maybe that's part of like where like I could have been part of the Fortnite generation. I just never picked it up. But like I will say,
this is why people don't like you. This is around the office, dude. I'm so glad we're having this conversation because it's been like hush hush, secret. Like there's 3 Slack channels about it. It's just you leave the room, everyone's like, that scuzzy guy could have been part of the Fortnite generation.
But he did it. He thinks he's cooler than Fortnite.
This fucking guy.
But like, I think there's like, I also wouldn't want to consume anything like via Fortnite, like because there's like a layer upon a layer of viewing something. At the same time, like Fortnite is where so many people just are on every day.
Yeah.
They're just on Fortnite. It's their daily after work, after school activity. That's where they are.
For me, it's a lot. My daughter lives on the other side of the country. Like that was where we hung out for ages. We would play Fortnite and we would just shoot the shit. I have a buddy who lives in Europe, and like me and him would play Fortnite and shoot the shit. Like it was especially during pandemic. It was easier than Zoom. You didn't have the 40-minute limit. You didn't have to worry about like anything else, and you got to kill people.
True, and we all want to. But yeah, to that point, like Fortnite, we kind of said this before the show, but Fortnite is like what the metaverse kind of wished it was.
Yeah, it's the to be pretentious, it's the text of a metaverse.
Text. I know what that means.
But it's the archetype, it's the one that when Zuck renamed Facebook Meta, it's because he wanted his own Fortnite, and it didn't work out. Really, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but like it feels like Fortnite and Roblox are the only real metaverses. Which I don't even like the term metaverse, but but for whatever reason it stuck. It's like in like the late aughts when you tell people you were into chill wave, you always had to be like, I know, I just like Neon Indian and Washed Out. Can we just like move on? But yeah, those are the only ones that stuck. And something that I've always liked about Fortnite is it's free.
Yes.
And although they did have at one point, as you're saying, like this kind of like loot boxy sort of thing very early on in the game's iteration, there are obviously ways you can pay money in Fortnite for cosmetics and stuff, and I do all the time. But in comparison to a lot of other free-to-play games, it's not pay to win. Mm-hmm. The monetization, I wouldn't say they even advertise it lightly. They advertise it pretty heavily, but it's so optional. It's so optional. And I hope that stays the case.
I think it's a smart move to do so because Fortnite is the current generation third space. Those spaces don't really exist anymore in real life.
Tell me you're not just hanging out at Panera like 6 hours a day?
Look, I would love to, but they forced me to buy their sandwiches. I don't want to buy it.
Guy won't even hang out at Panera with us.
Look, I don't play Fortnite. I don't go to Panera. Like the spaces where people just hang out don't really exist anymore and are now like digital spaces. There are places where like video games that are free, like Fortnite, like Roblox.
God, I hate Roblox.
I don't play a lot, but people love Roblox.
I've had to do some time in Roblox, and I hate it so much.
And like Discord, like Discord is another place where people just hang out in chat rooms. People just hang out in their like voice chat rooms. And like, I think it's a smart move to look at those people and find a way to get them into into cinema. I think it is going to take a hit in terms of like artistic integrity of a film if it's like maybe that's too much to say, but
I'm of two minds about it because on the one hand I hear what you're saying. I guess my thing is, are they making it for that space? So I look at something like Netflix, which churns out tons of crap, which is fine. No judgment. My girlfriend has a saying, is everybody needs their slop. And it's like, yeah, hey, great. Yeah, you want to watch like some action movie that was made in Croatia for $6, mm-hmm. Like, great, go for it. I don't care. But they also make adolescence, like you can't look at adolescence and be like, that's Netflix slop, but it premiered on Netflix. It's just same with the Knives Out movies. Like those are Netflix originals, and they're great. So just because something doesn't premiere in a theater, I don't think automatically makes it less than. I don't think because it premiered in a theater doesn't automatically make it more than. But I do think there is a strong case to be made that a thing should be made for the medium it's meant to be experienced in. I think, and we were talking about this a little bit in the office the other day, but like Watchmen was written to be a graphic novel, mm-hmm. not a book, and arguably not just like a comic book. Like it really used the medium of graphic novel in a way that really, I don't know how you tell that story in film. I think Zack Snyder's film has a couple sequences that work really well. Overall, it doesn't work because that's not meant to really be adapted to film. Sure. In the same way that when you read Annihilation and then you go watch the movie, I love Alex Garland. There's some sequences in it I really like. But Annihilation is meant to be a book because it's meant to be something that lives in your head. It's not meant to be so literal.
Yeah.
So, are the movies that come out in Fortnite going to be made to come out in Fortnite? If so, yeah, maybe they're great. I want to be open to it, but I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the second part of this sort of thing?
I think so. But I guess to close it out, do you think Fortnite is going to be the future of cinema?
No. No, flat no, because I think it's not cinema, and I think that's okay. I think it's its own thing. You know, I think it might be. When I look at kind of the tools that Fortnite makes available, I wish that Fortnite had the same, UGC clout that Roblox did. I do not want it to do what Roblox does and be like, "Hey, predators, come hang out here." I think that's bad. I think that's bad.
Wow, controversial.
I know, controversial take. And I also think the way that every time there's like a mass shooting, Roblox is like, "Hey, come play it out here." It's like, that's terrible. Like
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Roblox can't stop it from happening. It keeps happening. It's insane.
Wow.
But I know Fortnite has like made all these tools. I hope that those tools become more available, and I hope that a new generation of creators uses those tools to create stories and experiences in media that I am perhaps blind to because I grew up without those tools. I think that would be really cool. But I don't think just premiering a movie in Fortnite or having Fortnite be some the equivalent of some convoluted menu screen to get you to a Disney Plus style menu of what you can stream, that I don't think adds anything. That feels like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
I think I ultimately agree with you that it won't be the future of cinema in that way. But just to play a little bit of devil's advocate,
please advocate for that devil, baby.
I love the devil, you guys. I just want to say that out loud. Because Fortnite functions as that third space. Like, I think the reason why cinemas are good or is a good experience is because you go in as like a group of people and you watch something together, and after you guys can talk about what happened.
Yeah, you play a couple rounds of Cruising World.
Yeah, but I think in the same way, like even if they just do like a premiering literal cinema film in Fortnite, I think just because people are there, it'll be a group of people across the world. They can watch something together, and then after it, talk about that experience like immediately.
Yeah,
I think that experience is, unfortunately, gonna happen in a digital space. I think there is a world where that happens. I'm not necessarily happy about it. I think face-to-face human interactions is like the fruits and vegetables of social interaction.
I'm vegetables to you.
This is vegetables.
This is broccoli.
I have to do it. I don't want to do this, but I have to maintain my mental state.
Oh man, that's brutal here.
I was like, talking to people online is like junk food. It's like it can sustain you a little bit, but it's just not the same. It's not healthy. But it still tastes good to people, and so I think there is a world where that still happens.
Well, I'm gonna be recovering from that point at me and saying I'm vegetable.
Broccoli's good. It's tasty.
Dude, I love broccoli. Like, straight up, I'll go to bat for broccoli. Yeah. It's delicious. Okay, now second up, one of the other things Josh Tomorrow said was that Disney's collaboration with Fortnite could become the place that you decide to book your next cruise vacation. Sort of continuing along this line of thought. Brian found this piece of research that I think is really interesting. In 2024, when Disney decided to announce their investment into Epic Games, they mentioned wanting to create a, quote, expansive and open games and entertainment universe connected to Fortnite. With this announcement, they showed an artist's rendition of what that might look like, which, Brian, pull it up on the screen. So you see this is very, Fortnite-y bunch of islands that are connected. We see ESPN and Marvel over there on the left.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting to note about this is that one of the biggest centerpieces is the World of Disney building at the center of the biggest island. World of Disney, of course, being the name of the chain of Disney merchandising stores that are located right outside the Disney theme parks. This highlights Disney's vision for what Fortnite could be, a potential arm of the Disney marketing machine.
Yeah.
Now, that, to me, as a guy who's like, Disney, cynically, I think there are people at Disney and at every studio who are movie geeks or video game geeks or whatever kind of geek you want. I think they're geeks at their core and they just happen to make their way up. I think Kevin Feige is one of these guys. I think he is a true blue stone cold comic geek. But I think there's also a lot of people who are business geeks and their thing is what increases shareholder value. This leg of the Disney Fortnite collab feels to me like it fits very squarely in that mold. What are your thoughts about that?
I think so. I think like the CEO's job is to like direct the company in a way that will generate the most profits.
Yeah, and if your company generates enough profits, you shave your head bald, you never wear a necktie, and you start going to space.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's
exactly.
how it works.
That's the end goal.
Yeah, everybody becomes Bezos in time.
Yeah.
You know.
But like, not to get like philosophical or like economic stuff, but like, we live in a capitalistic society, and that means that like the main goal is to generate capital.
Yeah.
So like, as the CEO of a company, if your main goal is to generate capital, then you're gonna try to find ways to increase like your marketing in different places. And if you want, and especially because right now, Disney's main source of income is their parks and experiences branch.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people to funnel into that is like their big priority.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned with the cinema talk, people are in Fortnite. Like that's where most people just hang out. And so for them to look at that as a opportunity to like funnel people into their experiences, I think makes a lot of sense. It's going to actually, as a caveat to that thought, I actually think this is going to be harder than Damaro thinks it's going to be, because I think gamers are pretty particular about their in-game advertisements.
Yeah.
They hate it. Like,
yes,
because like when you put actual ads in the game, people feel like more particularly sold to, and I think it leaves a negative taste in their mouth more so than other mediums. Like, cinema, there's like product placements. When it's egregious, people feel like it's particularly bad, and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe they're selling that." But like, I think because cinema universes are in like kind of the real world, there's a little bit of a forgiveness in it. We're like, "Oh yeah, well, Coca-Cola exists in the real world." Right. It's not going to be crazy that someone drinks Coca-Cola. But if you're playing a video game where it's largely fictional, it's like, what is Coca-Cola doing in Fortnite?
Take a Disney Princess Cruise, yeah. I mean, but Fortnite does have some of this stuff already. I would say Fortnite, one of the things that I think is pretty smart about the way Fortnite monetizes is every person who kills you wearing a stupid costume is an advertisement for that stupid costume, And they do have real world stuff in there. They'll have real car models. They'll have, I think they did like a Gucci. Was it Gucci or was it BC Max Azri or whatever? It was like one of these things a couple years ago. They will have real world stuff in there, and part of the appeal is, I might not be able to afford like, an actual Gucci suit or whatever. I can. I can. I'm saying these losers.
You just don't wear them. You like to just collect them.
Yeah, I just collect them. It's like, people get fancy cars. They don't drive the cars.
That's true.
I got fancy suits. I don't drive my suits. I think there is some of that stuff. But to your point, it's all stuff that's in game, and to advertise something out of game, again, it all depends on what it looks like. It's so early on in Damaro's. Damaro hasn't even taken over Disney yet.
That's true.
Just him hypothesizing about directions he want to go. These may be directional signals to the market to try to get investors all like, keyed up to whatever. But I have a hard time seeing myself making a major purchase in Fortnite. The way I could see it working out is in Fortnite. A lot of games do this. Diablo 4's Battle Pass does this. I think Division 2's Battle Pass does this. Helldivers does this. The battle passes or the things you can unlock just through play will have V-Bucks or super credits or whatever it is that you can spend on things you would otherwise spend real world money on. Mm-hmm. If part of the value proposition of Disney doing this sort of like, hey, we're going to sell you a cruise ticket in Fortnite is your kid plays enough Fortnite, they can get a cruise ticket, like.
Sure. Like a battle pass enough, and then you get the prize, which is like
sure. Or like, hey, if it's the case that we're doing it in Fortnite, we're going to trade in V-Bucks for it. Save up your V-Bucks for a year, and you could get a cruise ticket. That I could see that having a very specific appeal. The main thing companies want from online platforms is your data. The more you play, the more data you give them about your play style, your play thing, more data to train their like proprietary LLM to do whatever the hell they want it to do. Them tossing you a couple of V-Bucks in exchange for that is literally nothing from them. It's money they can print. And then if you can feel like you've earned that by trading in for a cruise after 10,000 hours played in game or whatever, more the merrier. Like that, I don't love the idea of them hoovering up this much data. I don't know that's what they're planning to do. This is me hypothesizing, but that I could see the appeal of that, of, hey, I can get this thing for cheaper because I play so much Fortnite.
Yeah, I think I didn't even consider that as like an option instead of like
Boom.
literally instead of
Boom.
This isn't a contest. We're having a
Winning.
discussion here. We're discussing things.
Broccoli wins.
Because I was initially thinking that like I think a storefront in the game would not do so well. The way that Damaro seems to be indicating, or like you can go in Fortnite as a storefront and buy a cruise. I think that might not pan out the way he wants, because the thing about gamers is that they want to game and to like stay in the game that they're in. People do put in a stupid amount of money in video games. Like
the
skins.
amount I've spent on Fortnite is embarrassing.
Yeah.
It is shameful how much money I've spent in that game over the years.
And some of the most egregious is like League of Legends, where they have these legendary skins that cost literally like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
People will buy it, but because they can use it in the game, I think it's harder to have them buy a cruise in the game where they have to now leave the game to do these things.
Right.
It's a little bit of a disconnect. But if they decide to do it the way you suggested, where it's like kind of like a battle pass, but like if you play enough, your reward is a cruise, like that, I feel like that could work a lot better.
Because here would be the way I would think of it. I used to work for a mobile game company. They had a free-to-play game that I won't name in case anyone who still works there gets mad at me for what I'm about to say. Yeah. But they had a free-to-play game that had a like kind of gotcha loot box mechanic in it. It was pay to win, which I don't like. I thought was bad and predatory. But the statistics, and this is true broadly of free-to-play games, but something like 98% of people won't ever make any purchases. It might even be higher than that. It might be like 98.5. Of the remainder, let's say it's 98.5. Of the remaining 1.5% of people, 0.5% will make a purchase, but their total lifetime value, the LTV of that user, will be something like less than $10. Who you're really aiming for with free-to-play games are the whales, are that last 1% of people who will spend thousands a year on your game, which is fine. That means most people get to play the game for absolutely free. In Fortnite, I suspect the metrics are largely the same. I haven't seen numbers on it, but I'm just guessing. So if it's the case that Disney wants to turn this into a storefront, what they're probably trying to do is increase the profit they make from whales. Mm-hmm. They're trying to increase the number of whales by a slight percentage, because also people just spending money in game is good. But really what they're trying to do is to increase the amount of people that are in that game. And if they can do that by being, hey, here's more rewards you can get from in-game, then that game is inherently more valuable, and they can trade on that for IP, anything else they want, right? Like I think, I don't know what the deals are between when The Simpsons shows up in Fortnite and South Park shows up in Fortnite. I don't know who's paying who, but I think at one point Fortnite was paying for the privilege of having Disney characters in Fortnite.
Right.
And I think we're not far away from even something as massive as The Simpsons paying Fortnite to be advertised to their audience. And I think Disney sees this coming and they recognize that, and I think that's part of what they're aiming for.
Yeah, Fortnite can become an advertisement platform.
Yeah.
Like if you have a new show coming on and you want to introduce people to those characters, maybe you buy slots as skins.
Or even an old show. My daughter was like asking me about South Park last week because it's all over Fortnite right now. And I was like, yeah, I mean, The Stick of Truth was a video game that came out a decade ago. There's a whole generation of kids, my niece and nephew included, who are aware of The Simpsons, but Fortnite certainly makes them real in a very different way. It's a friend of mine who's my age, said to me once that he thinks Fortnite's lockers are the equivalent of having action figures on your shelf. You go like, oh yeah, I bought this skin during this event and this skin during this event. You can kind of, have them on display. I think that Disney knows the more time people spend in Fortnite, the better it is for Fortnite. The more Disney's collaborated with Epic, the better it is for Disney. And if they can just dangle this like some kind of real world reward in front of them to increase the amount of time spent there, that's huge. And I don't know. I haven't seen anything that suggests to me that they are going to let people spend V-Bucks towards cruise ships. But it makes sense. You look at the airline points, points people like, Alaska Airlines, who I love. I love Alaska. Please keep doing everything you're doing. I'm not being paid to say this. Please. You get points if you use their credit card, and then all of a sudden you get free flights. Why wouldn't it be the same with like a kind of loyalty reward program for Disney and Fortnite?
To your point about like how they seem to be wanting to capture more of the whales. Like, I think that is probably true, especially today with like how the economy is going. From what I understand, like there's kind of been a diverge of like people, or there's actually more millionaires and above than ever.
We're all over the place.
Yeah, especially us.
Me and the guys down at the Gucci warehouse, we're all, us, we're always hobnobbing and drinking our Johnny Blue. There's tons of us.
Wow,
there's tons of us.
No, seriously. But also there's more people who can't afford basic necessities as well.
Yeah, that's the K-shaped economy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The K-shaped economy. And so most of the economic activity is being done by the upper part of the K. And so, as a company who's looking to, maximize profits, they want to look at the upper part of the K. And so in order to cast a wider net, they're going to cast nets in front of games. They're going to cast in front of sports stuff. And like Fortnite, with the amount of player base it has, we know that they already have whales. Well, they're like, well, let's cast the bigger net and get some of those whales to whale on our other products.
It's sort of the strategy we've seen with Disney parks over the past few years, where they've been raising ticket. We live in Manitoba, but it's a pretty short drive to Anaheim.
It's true.
And ticket prices at Disneyland have gotten so expensive over the past couple of years. Like, I just can't go. It was when my daughter was younger and she'd come out here to visit, we'd go down to Disneyland for the day, and it would be like, Christ, but it was worth it. Now I think a one-day ticket to a theme park is $180 or something. It's a lot.
It's absurd.
It's absurd, and so I'm just like, well, we're not going anymore.
Yeah.
Like, get over it. And she's over it. But I think it was a bigger deal for me than it was for her.
That's so funny.
If I'm being honest. So we've seen this kind of similar targeting of that upper end from Josh D'Amaro's parks department specifically over his recent history. Mm-hmm. It's reasonable to suspect that's the same sector demographic he's going to be going after with any collab. But yes, so yeah, any closing thoughts on the Fortnite as storefront for Disney section of things before we move on to our third sort of segment here?
I think it, in a business sense, makes a lot of sense that Disney wants to access this group of people and create a storefront for them.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a lot harder than Damar thinks. It might even be not possible. Gamers are pretty particularly adverse to outside market stuff. They love paying for the things in game. But if you play Fortnite and suddenly you can buy a Disney cruise, I just don't know if that's going to work out. But I understand as a company, you want to keep growing. So that's why they're trying.
Here's something I think I would genuinely enjoy.
Oh,
here's I think a version of this. Truly, just thought of this now. Wasn't holding this secret all this other time when I was saying I don't think so. Here's what I think I would enjoy. Again, Fortnite's fundamentally a game. If they're going to be doing it, if I'm there to play games, that's what I'm there to do, right? If there was a thing similar to how they have the Crown, where it's like, okay, hey, on the map, there's one digital token similar to a crown or the stick of truth, like in the most recent event or whatever, where it's like, if you get this and you royale with it, then you can buy it. and like using that as a way to kind of be like, well, hey, instead of buying like a blind box for a rare Labubu or something like that, which I don't need to do because I own a Labubu factory and I just take the best Labubu out of the factory. But if it was like, hey, here's this kind of like special tchotchke, maybe it's a collector's popcorn bucket, maybe it's a rare, Disney used to have the Disney Vault that you'd have to wait to get your VHSs out of or whatever. Maybe it's like a rare print of something or whatever. But in order to get it, you have to game it. Or there's like an area of the map where there's a Disney store. You can go there and get whatever you want, but you can only put it in your cart if you get back or achieve X goals in game. Sure. That to me would make it less of just a digital storefront and more of a gaming experience where it's like, okay, well, if I really want this pair of shoes, like I have to equip them as my kicks and win 3 battle royales, or whatever. I don't know. That would at least be interesting to me. I don't know if that's I think for most people, that's not a great buying experience, but it would at least occupy somewhere between digital storefront and video game for me in a way that I could maybe see myself enjoying.
Sure, yeah.
Let's move on to the third part of tomorrow's quote, where he had said, quote, people could participate in the Super Bowl in some way there. Obviously ESPN is a big arm in Disney. Live sports, similar to moviegoing, is having a little bit of a rough time. Is this something that they could use Fortnite to reinvigorate? Would Fortnite become a place you watch the Super Bowl or experience the halftime show as a Fortnite concert? Mm-hmm. Brian, what are your thoughts?
I think similar to the other two things, it makes sense to use Fortnite to try to reinvigorate these aspects, especially if they want to keep growing sports. But like the other two prospects, I just don't. I think similar to cinema, like the cinema conversation, it would be a way to like introduce another way to play or watch the game with your friends in a digital space. But I don't think it's going to reinvigorate the scene as DeMar maybe hopes.
Yeah. I mean, again, my thing is always going to be like, well, does it provide me with an interesting gaming experience? If it's the case that while the Super Bowl is on, and I'll use Sunday's Super Bowl as example, if every time the Seahawks score, I don't want to wait for the Patriots to score. That's not a good game to me. Also, fuck the Pats. Fuck them. Fuck the Pats. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a Jets fan. I have to hate you. But if it's the case that the game, there's some kind of fundamental interaction between the Super Bowl and me in game, right? The more points that are scored, the more areas of the map open up, being like just like a very simple version of it. Or, if certain thresholds are met in terms of rushing yards, passing yards, turnovers, something like that, it opens up new weapons in the game. I get new outfits, new emotes or something like that, so that the game state at the start of the Super Bowl is fundamentally different from the game state at the end of the Super Bowl. I could see that being very interesting. Again, I have no idea of knowing whether or not that is or is not what Josh D'Amaro is talking about or alluding to, but there are ways I could see it working out. The halftime shows, I'm like, well, like looking at Bad Bunny's halftime show, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
I can't understand any of his lyrics, but I've watched it twice.
Good
and both
vibe.
times I'm just like, this dude has the juice.
The vibes are good.
It's just he's so good. He's such a charismatic performer. It was so joyous. I loved it. But I could see there being a parallel experience. Where while the Super Bowl is happening, or while the halftime show is happening in the Super Bowl, you're playing through like one of these concert experiences in Fortnite,
Yeah.
I could see that working out very well. But again, it all kind of comes down to when I pick up Fortnite, I want to play a game. Maybe my expectations will change in time and then, it'll be something else entirely. Fortnite's always kind of been evolving. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, I don't go there to be passive. I go there to be actively engaged with something.
True. Yeah. There's a game that I play called Splatoon,
Oh
It's
yeah,
a
sure.
Nintendo shooter.
Yeah, I know Splatoon.
And one of the things that I really like about Splatoon is that like they have these monthly events or semi-monthly events called Splatfests, and you pick a team to like join, and it'll be like a topic like cats versus dogs. You pick team cats, team dogs, and you play games. The more you win, the more points you get for your team. And I think as a way to like cheer on your team, if it's like a battle royale, but you have like the Seahawks jersey or the Pats jersey, and you can like support your team in that way. It's not going to affect the actual game, but like you can at least see where the audience is at.
I mean, the very worst version of an interplay between those two is like, okay, it's time for an extra point. Let's go to Dank Nuts 69 and see like, whether or not he can,
Okay, it's time out. I'm not. This is coming from a person who didn't watch sports growing up.
Yeah,
that would be so hype as like a bonus point. Like, let's see where the Fortnite people are at. It's like, oh my god, the Seahawks are winning by 20. They won more than they did. You get an extra point.
Yeah,
and then that's how they win. That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. People would revolt.
No, that would be bad. That would be terrible. But that'd be funny.
But I do similarly. One of the things that really makes Helldivers 2, which also we just learned this morning that Helldivers being adapted into a movie with Jason Momoa and Justin Lin attached, which is actually I think a pretty solid pair. But one of the things that's made Helldivers 2 really stand out among other co-op shooters in the market right now is there is a growing narrative with Helldivers 2 that uses a lot of these things you're talking about, right? Where, there will be major orders, people will, there's kind of one guy at Arrowhead, maybe now it's a team, but at the start it was one guy at Arrowhead who was kind of like the lore keeper, and he'd be like, yeah, okay, can you guys beat this bug planet, beat this Illuminate planet, beat this robot planet? If you do, you'll clear that sector of the galaxy, and then the story will evolve. That made these individual games stack up in a way to tell this kind of broader narrative, and especially on Reddit, people got like really sucked into that in a way that's cool. That kind of interactivity between Fortnite and football would be genuinely interesting to me. It would be interesting to me as someone who doesn't particularly care about football anymore. I still hate the Pats. I can't root for the Jet. I can't root for anybody. I can't root for anyone but the Jets, and the Jets suck too much, so I can't root for the Jets, but I also can't root against the Jets, so I just have to kind of stand back. Yeah.
Football limbo.
Yeah. But that would be really interesting. Sort of the way, I don't know if you remember the, pretty sure it was a Peter Molyneux game. It was a mobile game that was a giant block. Do you remember this? And you'd have to tap the block to break it. And at the center of the block was something, and whoever got to the center would then became like the god character in another Peter Molyneux game.
Oh no!
It was a fascinating kind of. It was, as a game, it was pretty bad. It was not.
Yeah.
You're just literally like just tapping. It's like playing Clicker Hero or something. But as kind of this like collaborative art project, it was really interesting, and I know that games have the potential to do stuff like this. I know that sports have the potential to drive massive outpourings of emotion, positive and negative. Seeing those two things come together in a way that really enhanced both and used both of those things to maximum impact would be fascinating. I don't know that that's what they're going to do. I don't know what that's not what they're going to do, but in wanting to be optimistic about it, that's what I hope to see, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The potential for something interesting is there, but man, I'm a little wary at the future of what Disney thinks that they can get away with everything. But
I've been trying to speak to my optimistic side. Let's now let the inner cynic out.
Yeah.
My inner cynic feels differently.
Yeah.
My inner cynic thinks that the corporation of Disney sees a captive audience in Fortnite, and they're going to try to squeeze them dry for every last cent of shareholder value they can produce without giving them anything in return. 100%. They are going to try their best to use them as a money mint, and then when they run out of it or run them dry or piss them off, they'll run away. That's what I think is probably the most likely scenario. I really hope that's not true. Yeah. But I think, we were talking a little bit before about when, before we started taping, we were talking a little bit about when EA put out Star Wars Battlefront 2, which is a very good Star Wars game. It is arguably my favorite Star Wars game. I think the space battles in Battlefront 2 are phenomenal. Some parts of Starfield come close. Some parts of Jump Space come really close. But without the John Williams score, it's just not quite right. But EA, instead of just making a good game and charging $60 for it, charge people $60 and then put them into like a loot box progression loop, and rightfully got pilloried for it. That to me is what I think the most likely future for Disney and Epic collaborations is. I hope that's not the case. For all of its many faults and for all of its silliness, Fortnite is a pretty rare thing in modern gaming industry. It's free to play. It's something where you can choose exactly how much you want to monetize your play. It's fun and it is cross-generational, you know, in a way that no other game I've played has. I think it's also a corporate product and susceptible to all the flaws and follies all corporate products are. But I like to think that the parts of Disney I love the most, the parts I grew up on, the parts where it's like, yeah, I'm going to watch Sword in the Stone on loop 30 times till the VHS burns out. You know, I'm going to go learn how to do every single voice in Friend Like Me. You know, like I hope that those parts are what Fortnite's Epic and Disney's collaboration is built on, and not the parts that are just like merchandising. You know what I mean?
I think it's like same. And just the fact that the CEO that was chosen was the one that was heading the Parks and Experiences side does indicate that like where they're gonna focus on is the merchandising, the more optimal way to like get money from people, and less about like creating a fun, unique experience within the game of Fortnite.
Yeah, creating an indelible character or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
As a business, it's super smart to think beyond what they currently do. Clearly, trying to make a lot of movies isn't like doing them the most amount of like, it's not bringing in the most amount of people. You know, it's a dying industry. Streaming is not really working, at least not the way they wanted to. Disney Plus is, from what I understand, like hemorrhaging money still. It's not like breaking even or anything. And Fortnite is a place where people put in a lot of money and they see opportunity there.
Yeah.
And so they're going to try to do whatever they can to get the money that they want. All I hope is that it doesn't ruin the core experience. And like, that's all we can hope for.
Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, like, but yeah, I remain skeptical.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Well, any closing thoughts before we close out for the day? Is there anything from the potential future of Fortnite? Or I keep saying Fortnite, but really it's Epic and Disney.
Yeah. Right.
Is there anything from the future collaboration of Epic and Disney that you are particularly stoked about that we didn't get to, particularly fearful of that we didn't get to, particularly jazzed or not jazzed about?
I am, as a person who just likes to observe things happening, I'm like morbidly curious on how this is going to pan out.
Yeah.
I just want to see what they're going to do. Like, are they literally going to put a store in Fortnite to like have people buy things? Will people respond to that? Will the backlash be so hard that Epic decides, hey, we're not gonna do this anymore? I don't know. It's just that stuff is like interesting to watch happen. I hope that like this isn't the start or whatever of the enshittification of like Fortnite. You know? Like you said, Fortnite is a pretty unique property in that like so many people currently play it and it's still beloved by people. And it would be a shame that in the pursuit of more profit that Disney takes Fortnite down with them as they try to like use it for something.
Yeah, one of my favorite things at Disney parks, which I haven't done in years because now it's so pricey, but there's a ride called Buzz Lightyear's Ranger Roundup. Right. Have you done it? Yeah. It's great. I love it so much. I remember distinctly the first time riding it when I was in like high school or whatever. And I took my daughter on it when she was young. And that I think is a potential blueprint for what a really great and rewarding Disney Epic collaboration could look like. It's a little bit more than a ride. It's not quite a game. It's its own weird experience that's super fun, super satisfying, and super compelling to experience over and over and over again. And I think if the Disney Epic collaboration can produce things like that are more accessible because of the platform they're in, because they're not in meat space, because they're in Fortnite. That's super cool to me. Yeah, you got meat space, you got cyberspace. That's super cool to me.
Yeah.
If it winds up being a way to squeeze people for money, that's not as cool to me.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen.
Yeah. I mean, look, Disney, I think ultimately it's not going to be, Fortnite is not going to be the future of cinema or the future of commerce and the future of sports and entertainment. There's probably going to be some weird new third thing that appears in this collaboration, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, that's it for us today. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Breakroom channel on YouTube. I know everybody says it. They say it because it genuinely helps channels like ours. So please, please, please like and subscribe. And give us a follow on Twitch, where sometimes we stream these. Sometimes Brian does behind-the-scenes producer streams. Brian, you got any socials you want to plug?
If you want to follow me, I am everywhere at Standby Brian.
And I am nowhere, but my improv troupe is on YouTube at youtube.com/convoyimprov. Follow Breakroom NR on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.